All right, so we're back with another one of these monthly so-called podcast things that I will do on visual novels that I've been reading or have read or whatever comes to my mind at the moment. And like I said last time, today we're going to be covering all six Phoenix Wright games, but not Great Ace Attorney, even though I have read most of Great Ace Attorney. We haven't finished that last case because I've been watching it with my girlfriend because she wants to watch it with me. Really great game, just like all the Phoenix Wright games. So there you go. That's my general opinion, is that all six Phoenix Wright games are worth reading. So I'm not going to have the controversial opinions that I normally have of, oh yeah, the series is shit. Why does anyone like this series? No. I think all six Phoenix Wright games are worth reading. I think they're very well paced compared to most visual novels. Very interesting cast of characters compared to most visual novels. Well, not necessarily interesting, but a very lively and colorful and fun cast of characters. If anything, the biggest problem with the series is maybe the characters aren't quite interesting enough, but we'll go into that. And but before that, I have been reading Chaos Child. That's the visual novel I've been currently reading. And I was really liking Chaos Child. I'm not even at the end of the common route, so this is just kind of an impression, not a real in-depth thing. This is just how my mood is towards the game at the moment. And at first, I think the game is much better paced than most visual novels, so it actually is fun to read. And, I believe I felt the same way about Chaos Head. And basically, I would say, as I was really, really into it, I was basically reading it nonstop. Even my girlfriend noticed that. It's like, wow, you're really just constantly reading that. I'm like, yeah, I'm into it. And then it got to a certain point, and now I've kind of put it on hold for for weeks, actually. It's been more than 2 weeks. And I kind of haven't really gone back to it. I go back to it and play it for like 20 minutes, and then I just set it down or whatever, because it brought back the lamest part of Chaos Head, which I thought the author would stay away from because, and that is the whole thing with, this isn't really a spoiler, I don't think, but I'm not going to it's the whole thing with the gigolo maniacs, right? And that part of Chaos Head was so weak. So weak. It's like, that's what ruined Chaos Head. You realize that, don't you, author? Because you combine mystery horror and tension with superpowers. They don't work. They never will work, because the second we establish that, one of our main characters have superpowers is the second that, oh, well, I'm not going to get into any of the tension situations because I know he could probably, at the whim of the author wanting him to, could just bust this superpower out of his ass and get out of the situation. It's like if he has a kind of a instant win button, it's just not. I'm not saying that even happens in the story. I'm kind of predeterminedly judging. That's just why they don't normally put these two and two together, because it just, in your head, it's kind of hard to get out. It's like, well, the only reason he didn't get out of that situation is because the author randomly didn't decide to give him superpowers that bust him out of those stupid situations. So as soon as they brought that back, I just have not been into it at all anymore. And another problem with the game is, really, at this point, I'm 7 chapters into the common route. So I've been reading it for probably about 10, 12 hours. I don't know how long that is into the game. And really, the only good character is No, which is better than Chaos Head, because Chaos Head basically didn't have any good characters. But the rest of the cast, they're okay. I think they're better than Chaos Head's cast, because Chaos Head's cast is terrible, right? And the only character that even is worth a damn is the main character in Bond, right? Those are the only characters that even freaking mattered. But in this cast, the only character that matters is No, who is better than probably every character in Chaos Head, because she seems probably freshed out. But the other characters, they just don't feel like they've really done much. I know in the heroine routes, they'll feel like they'll probably flesh them out more. But it feels like maybe it feels weird because Nono's not even apparently the main heroine of the game. And I'm like, really? You spent all this time on Nono and no time on anyone else, and she's not even the main heroine? What the hell's up with that? And I'm sure I'll see later, but I just feel like that's kind of a weird thing to do, because it's like in Steins Gate, Kurisu's the main heroine, and she's the one that got the most time spent on her in the common route. Makes sense. That's a proper way to make a visual novel, right? Because, hey, we're telling you, get invested into this character, because she's important. And I think it really worked in Steins Gate, but in this game, it's like, yeah, the main character in this game isn't so bad, but, you know, he's like an in-between of Takumi from Chaos Head and Okabe from Steins Gate. He's kind of like in between both of those. And, I don't know, it almost feels like we've done this main character before with you, author. He doesn't really feel that original to me. His voice actor is very good. It's Kirito-kun, which I hate putting together because I really hate Sword Art Online a lot. But, you know, I can't deny that he's an extremely good voice actor. The voice acting in the game is fairly competent all around. Nono is also extremely good, probably the best voice actress of the girls, which is, once again, why isn't she the main heroine? It's like, why is it? Because I hear it's Sarika. I don't really know. Maybe Nono actually is the main heroine, but I doubt it. Yeah, it's all right though. I'm not really far enough in to really give an adequate like review of anything in it, but so far it's fine. I just gotta convince myself to keep reading. It's definitely not what I would call super boring. It just did something I really didn't agree with, and it kind of bothers me, so I just gotta mentally get myself past there and keep reading. And I guess if the characters were more interesting, because the only character I'm really invested in is Nono, then I would have a motivation to keep reading, but I don't think it's done a lot with the cast, you know, and the main character is just kind of, I'm a paranoid guy, there's stuff interesting about me, but we're gonna kind of sidestep around it the whole game until we feel like revealing whatever's interesting about me. And then we got Sarika, who's just, I guess we'll have interesting things about her, but once again, we're sidestepping around it but for the most part, she's just, you know, kind of dumb girl. And then we got Kazuki, who's, I think that's her name, who's just kind of, And I'm like, oh, yes, very riveting. You're such a great character, Kazuki. And, you know, bro character is typical bro character. It's just, you know, same bro character you could find in literally any Karage. Nothing really that makes him stand out. He's not offensively bad. He's just, I hate to say it, but he's just typical. There's nothing they've done to really make him stand out either. And is there any other girls? Then the detective in this game isn't even as interesting as Spawn. But yeah. Overall, I would say, you know, it's kind of weird to think about when I think about Chaos Head. I think maybe Chaos Head was actually more interesting because in this game we also have delusional triggers, but the reason the delusional triggers worked in Chaos Head is because the main character was the way he was in Chaos Head, it made you really question whether those delusional triggers were reality or not, because we really couldn't trust the main character and what he was thinking because of the way he was. But this main character is a little more normal, so it just feels like these delusional triggers are just kind of there because they were there in Chaos Head and because of the superpower plot twist. You know, it just feels like, it really just feels like they're in there to be fan service or to break tension or whatever and to be stupid. And most of the time I just want to skip them, but I feel like I have to because otherwise I'm missing something. But most of the time they're just dumb. You know, I don't like the delusional triggers at all in this game. In Chaos Head, I found them amusing, but in this game, I feel like they just kind of completely destroy the atmosphere of this game. And is there anything else to say about Chaos Child at the moment? Yeah, you know, it made me realize that, you know, I really wish I could have liked Chaos Head, but I'm hoping it does not do what Chaos Head does, is that Chaos Head was fine for most of the game, but you thought that the thing about it is it gave you a very rushed ending instead of expanding on all the characters, and I think that's why it has individual routes, but I'm also kind of worried about that. I'm like, why does it have heroine routes? I mean, like, I wish it was just linear. Like, Chaos Head's problem was not that it was linear. The problem with Chaos Head was that it rushed the ending and destroyed the whole visual novel with its chapter 10 or whatever, because it just was like, oh yeah, we're just gonna rush everything and not develop any of the characters properly, but still try to give you backstories on some of them, even though there's no reason for you to give a flying shit. And I guess this game won't have that problem if it gives you heroine routes. but I guess I can't really determine anything at this moment. We will see. I'll get back to you on that. But for now, let me talk about the Phoenix Wright games, and I've never felt the need to make an individual review because, let's just be honest, Phoenix Wright games have been reviewed by everyone. Now, like I said at the beginning, I do think every Phoenix Wright game is worth playing because they're fun, paced well generally. You know, Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice are quite a bit slower than the first four because the writer decided, I'm going to flesh out the characters better, because he really doesn't do that in the first four games. He decides, in the first four games, I feel like he's more focused on trying to make them entertaining and, you know, paced pretty quick. Compared to most visual novels, they're paced pretty quick. If you think Phoenix Wright is slow, I'm going to tell you, especially the first Phoenix Wright game, if you think they're slow, then good luck reading any other visual novel. Like, really good luck. Unless it's apparently Doki Doki Literature Club. And no, I am not going to talk about Doki Doki Literature Club. You know, Doki Doki fan fiction is what I would call it. It's like such a crappy visual novel. Got so popular. It's like, I don't even understand anymore. But I know I'm tangenting off Phoenix Wright for a second, but it's like, man, it's like, the only reason that's popular at all is because it's free. Like, I haven't actually read all of it, but I've read some of the past. I'm like, man, the writing in this is so horrible. Like, horrible. But, you know, whatever. I can't deny, you know, there's popular things I don't understand. I don't understand why Sword Art Online is so popular. I don't understand why Attack on Titan is so popular. I don't understand why Code Geass is so popular. I think all of those are horrifically written, but, you know, that's just me. So if you like Doki Doki Literature Club, have at it. But anyway, let's just start with oh, by the way, this will be spoilers for the entire series. So if you have not read every single Phoenix Wright game, every single one that's out, do not go past here, because I'm going to be mentioning others in the series as if I talk about one, I might mention something from four. So just so you know, do not go past here, because I feel like at this point, everyone's had a chance to read all six of them, right? They've been out long enough that everyone's had a chance. Okay, let's go. Phoenix Wright 1 is definitely the fastest paced Phoenix Wright game. Absolutely. It is non-stop, just throwing stuff at you so fast. And because of that, none of the characters are particularly well developed except for Edgeworth. And this is probably why people actually really like Edgeworth, is because he's actually pretty well developed compared to, honestly, Phoenix. And this is going to be controversial opinion number one. Phoenix is an entertaining character. He is not an interesting main character. He does not get any really interesting development either. And I think a problem with the pacing and with Phoenix as a character is because Phoenix is the way he is, a lot of the time the drama with him gets really undersold. And for example, when Mia dies in this game, as we know in the second case, Phoenix very, very does not sell this drama very well. He does not. When I read it, I'm like, man, he just gets over this, and it's like, well, Mia's dead. All right, to justice. I will solve this case. You know, it's like very old school kind of drama. It's like the character just gets over it, like it's nothing. And I found that very amusing when I read it. It keeps the game's pace fun, but it kind of makes Phoenix a little hard to take seriously. Like, I think Phoenix is fun because he has a lot of goofy reactions and whatnot, but it's because of the way he is. He's not an interesting character until Apollo Justice, in which case no one liked how he changed in Apollo Justice. But he just doesn't sell the drama well enough at all, so it's really hard to get into the drama. And you might say, well, I don't care about the drama in Phoenix. I only care about the stupid court cases or whatnot, in which case that's fine. And that's why a lot of people might prefer 1 through 3 over 4 through 6, because, well, not Apollo Justice per se, but Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice, because both of those try to sell the drama a lot more than these first 4 games. But yeah, the main thing about this game is I think it is structured better than any of the other Phoenix Wright games outside of Dual Destinies, because this is a game where you take Phoenix, who's a complete newbie, and go all the way to a competent lawyer at the end. And even his opponents and his what kind of people he is defending against kind of gradually builds up to more of a logical conclusion than the other games. Where in the other games, a lot of the times, it just feels like randomness a lot of the times. Like, there's no real flow to how things happen, especially Spirit of Justice, which I'll talk about, which is the worst structured Phoenix Wright game. So we're going to go, isn't it funny? The first in the series is the best structured, and the last in the series is the worst structured. But because of that, Phoenix Wright 1 is a very, very simple game. And the whole way she writes, whoever the writer is, I don't know if it's a male or a female. I'm going to guess it's a male because of how shonen it is, but could be a female. The whole way they write Phoenix Wright is so simple in comparison. Like, if you think about in, like, Phoenix's past, like, what is his traumatizing past? Oh, I got my lunch money. Like, everyone accused me of stealing their lunch money. And then we go to Dual Destinies with Athena's past, and it's like, yeah, I accidentally butchered my mom. It's like, wow. We go from really kind of teenage stuff, like really shonen anime stuff, to an M-rated Phoenix Wright game, which I can't even believe even now. It's like, we have an M-rated Phoenix Wright game. What the hell? You know, it's like, I know we're dealing with murder cases and stuff all the time, but damn. But there's really not a lot to talk about in Phoenix Wright 1, except for because everything is just so simply written. You usually are just given your defense. They give you a little quirks on their personality. They go and investigate for a bit. And yeah, that's about it. The only thing to really talk about in this game is the last case, which I consider, even at this point, to be the best case in the entire Phoenix Wright series. The reason is because this game did spend a long way of building up your interest in Edgeworth, and and I think it does a good job with Edgeworth. I think Edgeworth and Godot are the two best prosecutors in the series, because Edgeworth just has a much more balanced personality of being kind of smart and smug while also getting flustered very, very heavily and by all the stupidness that happens around him. And also by making him not seem like such a bad guy. He's not just an asshole all the time. You can tell he's probably a nice guy on the inside, but, whatever is making him kind of go against Phoenix. And I think it's really interesting enough because it's paced well. And you know that Phoenix and him have this closer relationship, and then when you realize that Edgeworth is the reason that Phoenix became a defense attorney, it's all kind of cute in a way that they go against each other when Edgeworth is the one that gave Phoenix a positive influence to become a defense attorney. And in that last case, it's funny that you're against him the whole game, and now you defend him. And it's amusing because it's just, you see him at this weakened state, even though he's been all strong and smug the whole game. And it works really, really well. And that whole last case is just paced really well. It uses every character that was introduced in the game in a really good fashion, unlike the final case of Trials and Tribulation, which kind of uses every character, but it feels very forced in a lot of ways in the ways it use characters. And it just feels like a lot of characters are there because of fan service, where I didn't really feel like this in the last case of this game. Really like this case. It was and Von Karma, to me, is the most entertaining villain in the series, really. I think he just is so over the top, and they kind of shoot themselves in the foot when they introduce Von Karma, because they introduce him as the ultimate prosecutor, right? And it's like, yeah, you feel like that, and because he really presses you harder and he objects to everything. And then the rest of the prosecutors in the series, when you fight them, they just feel kind of underwhelming compared to Von Karma. I know he's not necessarily a super interesting character, but he was a very entertaining villain, and I really think as a villain he's the best the series has ever had to offer. And I feel like a lot of the times when the series tries to replicate Von Karma, but they just fail at it because, I don't know, he is just so much more charismatic while being so deviously, stupidly evil that it's just humorous. Well, and this is actually a flaw with the Phoenix Wright series. This is the main flaw with the Phoenix Wright series, is the villains. They suck. I hate to say that, but they suck ass. There's only three I consider any good in this series. One is Von Karma, which is from the first game. The other is Mysterious. Is that how you pronounce it? Mysterious in Spirit of Justice. And the guy, this is super controversial opinion right now, but the guy from Turnabout Big Top in the second game, which is everyone's least favorite case in the entire series, but I'll get to that. So overall, Phoenix Wright 1 is a very simple game and a very well-paced game, and never felt like it overstayed its welcome. It just kind of flowed along, and it was built up really well. And unfortunately, with the way it was, I was kind of like, man, I was so satisfied with the end of this game, I kind of don't want to go on. But my girlfriend was like, no, you gotta play the rest of the series. So I did, and I don't regret it, but I do think Phoenix Wright 1 kind of had one of the most satisfactory endings to a series until Spirit of Justice, which I would say has the most satisfactory end to the series. So despite its flaws, this is why I say every Phoenix Wright game's worth reading, is because every game has flaws, but they all have their strong points that kind of overcome those flaws. So the second game, which is honestly probably the worst game in the series, because it is one giant load of filler. This game is the one game in the series you could honestly skip if the second case wasn't in the series. Don't get me wrong, I still like this game. In fact, I'll say this about Justice for All, is that the second game made me laugh more than any other game in the series. That is the honest truth. I have no idea why. Maybe it's because of the stupid old bag and her gun at the end of the fourth case, but it's just I don't know, something about it made me laugh a lot. But I will still say, this game didn't need to exist. Let's be honest. The trilogy, it didn't need to be a trilogy. It should have just been 2 games. In the third game, the second case of this game should have just been the second case of the third game. There was no reason for there to be 3 games, because all of this is just filler. The only thing is built up, kinda, which is extremely dumb, by the way, is that you think Edgeworth is dead and then he's not, and it's, oh my god, it's so stupid. I can't believe they even try to do this. It's like some sort of stupid wrestling storyline. It's that bad. And then he comes back and, he tries to get you to prove what it means to be a lawyer or whatever, and that you got to defend against people that you might not want to, even though you can totally cop it out in a way too. It's kind of half-assed about it, and that whole storyline is stupid. I hate to say that. It's dumb, and that's probably why I would say Justice for All is the worst game. But the second case is quite good. It's quite interesting. It should have been in the third game, but it really would have made the third game way better, because I have a very controversial opinion to say about the third game, and that is, I'll just say it now because I might as well. The third game is actually my least favorite Phoenix Wright game, which is the controversial opinion of a lifetime, because that's usually everyone's favorite if it's not the first. And the reason for that is it feels too similar to the first 2 games. It doesn't feel like it's bringing enough new to the table, nor is the overarching plot that good. I know people would say, oh, how could you like the third game? The third game is the first game that really builds up a plot throughout the game, like a really kind of complex one. It's just, but I'll get to it, but I just, nah. I actually put that game, it's just a personal thing, because I'm not saying it's the worst in the series. It probably holds up better than the second game in Apollo Justice. If you play it again, it's probably better on rereads than those 2. I'll admit that. But when I was playing it, I would always put it down and pick it back up, and I'll get to it. But the controversial case of Justice for All is Turnabout Big Top, which does some... The reason I think people hate this case so much is people say, oh, it's illogical because of this and that. And I'm like, well, you could say it's illogical, but freaking every Phoenix Wright game is illogical. The thing about this review, I should have said this at the beginning, but the thing about this review about Phoenix Wright is that I do not look at Phoenix Wrights as mystery games. I look at them as visual novels because to me, you could the most enjoyable part is the visual novel, the storytelling, the characters. The adventure part, don't get me wrong, it's good to make games like this where you actively have to solve the mystery. In fact, I think that's more satisfying than just having to have the mystery told to you like a normal book. So I think these mystery visual novels are actually much better than those just because you have to put the pieces together with the evidence you're given. I truly think that. That being said, I won't lie that I used a walkthrough on some of them just because I didn't want the pacing to get ruined on some of them. That's the other thing, is that sometimes you'll get stuck on one of the puzzles, but you just want to see the rest of the story. And so, I won't lie, at the last case of Spirit of Justice, I just wanted to see the rest of that case. And I was not having any of that pacing ruined for me, and I wanted to just keep seeing what was going to happen next. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because I was that into the case that I did not care about the gameplay at all after that. But at the same time, it's like maybe I kind of killed that experience for me a little, but I kind of wish I did that in the last case of the third game, to be honest, because I tried to figure that one all out, and some of the logic in that case is a little bullshitty, if you ask me, but whatever. We'll just say I'm dumb, too. But Operation Big Top. Why is this case so controversial? Someone said, like I said before, some people think it's really illogical in a lot of places, but then again, a lot of people's favorite game is the third game, and that's the game that friggin' people can't remember what Phoenix Wright looks like. They think this big red guy looks like Phoenix Wright. That's the most illogical thing in the entire series, you know? It's like, I don't think logic really applies that much to the Phoenix Wright universe. There's bullshit in every game, is the way I see it. So I think the biggest problem with Operation Big Top is it's very long for a filler case. But Operation Big Top, I call it Operation Big Top. It's Turnabout Big Top. I don't even know why I said that. But it does something none of the other Phoenix Wright games have done since and before, which is weird, is that it is the only game it is the only case where they take the villain completely seriously in the second half. He's literally a sympathetic character who they take completely seriously. And it establishes a legit cool moment, because all the villains have been goofy up to then. And when you get a legit serious, like some people would say that maybe this is a little off tone for Phoenix Wright, but it's legit cool. And it's like, makes me wonder, it's like, God, why don't they do this for any of the other villains? And they don't. They don't do it. There always has to be a goofy overreaction when you beat them. They always have to make themselves look like absolute retards every time you beat them, which is fun, but at the same time, it's kind of just every single villain, it becomes repetitive, and it makes you wish that can't they take the games a little more seriously? Now, in Spirit of Justice, in the third case of that game, they sort of do that as well, but that guy's hardly a villain. But still, that's also a legit cool moment in the third game. In fact, I would say in the third game, the sixth game. But this is the moment I think did it the best. And I was so into this case because of that. I felt bad for this guy, and one of my friends actually told me, I was like, well, I actually felt worse for the villain than I felt for any of the guys I was defending against, and that's why I didn't like the case, which is fair enough, but I actually quite like that the circus people are actually more assholes, and that actually leads into the last case, is that sometimes you're defending people who really are kind of shitty people at times, and I think that made the game more interesting, to be honest, and I wish in the seventh game, in the last case, can we please make the last villain not a goofball? Because I really think the seventh game should be the last Phoenix Wright game, because we only have one little stupid plot point to uncover, right? With Apollo's mom. That's the dumbest fucking thing. I haven't gotten into that yet, but I just want to say that plot point makes me want to kill myself, to be honest, because it's so bad. Yeah, legit cool. I love that. I love that moment, and I was really, really into it. I know, but I'll also say about Operation Big Top, that clown was annoying as shit. Annoying as shit. And that's probably, I blame him on the reason why people hate that case. That stupid clown. And it just being way too long. The case was way too long for what it was. Then the last case is goofy as hell. The villain's hilarious, and it's a really over-the-top case. Quite honestly, I don't remember a lot about it because it's, at the end of the day, kind of a typical Phoenix Wright case. But there's really not much to say about it other than what I said at the beginning. Some of the character development Phoenix was established to get kind of feels very hypocritical and very contradictory. It doesn't really feel like Phoenix is learning that he has to defend people that necessarily are worth it. It doesn't feel like that at all. So I just kind of feel like that case is more for its entertaining merits, if anything. And I did feel it was very entertaining, but whatever. It was nice for Phoenix to actually lose to Edgeworth for a change, I guess, even though it didn't really feel like he lost to Edgeworth in a legitimate fashion. So that's kind of weird. The third game. The third game is the game that tries to build up a plot the entire game about Mia and Dahlia. The biggest problem with this game is neither of these characters are interesting at all. I know people love Mia because she's, the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the series. I'm the badass master of the series. But there's nothing really that interesting about Mia. She's just a badass. She doesn't really get any interesting character development. She doesn't have really that much to her. She's just, well, freaking Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's nothing really to her. And they try to bring up this rivalry between her and Dahlia the whole game, but I never really felt it, to be honest. First of all, it might have been better if the game actually took time to establish the relationship between Godot and Mia, but unfortunately, we only see them in one case together, and it's just, it's fun, but it's not really enough to really say that they have some deep connection with each other like the game tries to sell. And I don't know, I never got into that. I didn't think it was interesting at all. I was like, what? And they try to build up like Mia has this intense Dahlia has this intense rivalry with Mia, and I'm like, I just don't feel like that at all. Like, yeah, they have some cases together, and I guess it's satisfying to see Mia beat her at the end, but let's be honest, Dahlia's not what makes this game interesting. What makes this game interesting is Godot, and it would have been much better if the game spent more time on him than on Dahlia, and I think that's the main thing that I complain about this game about is they try to spend so much time on Dahlia, who is just, I'm a girl who's a bitch with daddy issues, and that's my entire character. Literally my entire character. I try to act nice, but secretly I'm a big bitch. And I don't know. I never thought she was as entertaining of a villain as Von Karma. I think he did that whole stick a lot better. Like, she's a different kind of villain, but I just, she's not that interesting. This is the problem, is that Phoenix Wright doesn't really have in-depth characters at this moment until eventually except for Edgeworth and Godot. Those are the only characters that have any reasonable amount of depth to them at this point. But then another problem with the game is it starts you off with the first case with Mia and Dahlia, right? And to build up that kind of rivalry sense, right? And it also shows as Phoenix as being a dipshit at the beginning, which is, amusing to see. To a degree, that he was actually love-struck over a lady, even though he's shown to otherwise be completely asexual, except for Edgeworth, ever since. I know a lot of people love Maya and Phoenix together, but and that's fine. They might as well make that happen, to be honest, at this point. But they're probably never going to confirm any Phoenix Wright shipping except for Gumshoe and Maggie. And by the way, fuck Maya. I forgot to even bring this up in the other games. In the first game, Maya didn't bother me. But by this game, she was just a joke of a character. Really, really gotta say that. She is such a joke. I mean, there's really not much to talk about the characters. They're just kind of archetypal. But she's supposed to be like, I guess, the comic relief of the game? But she sucks at it. Like, because Gumshoe's a way better comic relief. I'm like, why is she even in this game when we already have Gumshoe being the comic relief? It just, I hate Maya. She's so worthless as a character. She does basically nothing helpful. She sucks. All she's there is to show how stupid she is. And she barely develops, even though they try to say she develops. It's weird. She like goes off to be like useful at the end of the first game to get more training, and then she has nothing to show for it in the second and third game. It's like, yeah, she's better at summoning someone who's more useful than her at the game. She's so worthless. There's nothing to her character at all. And she just serves to be annoying. And in the last bit of this game, I'll just talk about it now, where she tries to defend Godot by showing how much of a dumbass she is. It's like, you realize by defending Godot, who is, the actual murderer, you will also at the same time put someone else who isn't the murderer in jail. Although, if they wanted to, but Phoenix Wright would never do this at this point, is like, well, perhaps because Iris desecrated her mother's corpse, she could do that because she's so bitter towards Iris for doing that, and that would show development by Maya. But that is not the reason. Maya's doing it because she's a dumbass who can't think about what she's doing. And the only time, it really shows a big difference in the author's writing ability, because in the sixth game, in Spirit of Justice, they actually show Maya to be more of a character. They actually show her to have more than just being a dumbass. She actually has things to say. She actually has some personality out of being, I'm an idiot, by the way. By the way, every line should remind you how much of an idiot I am. It's just, I hate her. I hate her so much. That's my other big controversy. As I know a lot of people think Maya's the best girl in the series. Either Maya or Mia. And I'm like, no. To me, Athena, Trucy, and especially, Miss Susato from Great Ace Attorney are way better characters than those two, because the writer just writes a lot simpler back in the day. He doesn't really give Maya he tries to say he's giving her character development, but he ultimately gives her nothing. Even Pearls is a better character than Maya, okay? Because she does feel like she develops, and she does feel like she's more useful than Maya too, which is sad. but she's like 10 years old. It just solidifies how much of a dumbass she is. And it's not like in an endearing way, like Gumshoe. Like, Gumshoe's great. Gumshoe's like the best character almost in the series because he's so hilarious. He has so many amazing lines. In fact, Trials and Tribulations has one of my favorite lines in the series, which is like Edgeworth is saying like, it's like, if something happened to Maya, I could never show my face to Phoenix again. And Gumshoe's just like, that's all right, Mr. Edgeworth. You can just show my face. And I completely was dying laughing at that point. I just was crying. I could not believe that line was written down. I loved it. So, I'm not, just because I enjoyed this game the least doesn't mean I'm completely down on it. Anyway, I went on a big tangent there, but that's me. That's what I do. But the reason I also enjoyed it the least is because they were building up this beginning with Mia and all that, and then the next two cases have nothing to do with that. I know they kind of established Godot as a character, but they don't really do anything with this main plot they established at the beginning. And it just kind of, it's like, oh, get invested in this interesting plot at the beginning of the game, and then let's not focus on it at all for these two cases. We'll just kind of establish Godot for these two cases, and that's it. And it kind of just, it's like, if you want us to get invested, keep us invested. Don't go off on filler cases. I guarantee I would have liked Trials and Tribulation more if they just wouldn't do that. And eventually, in Dual Destinies, they do basically make every case relevant, which I'll go ahead and spoil. That is why Dual Destinies is my favorite game. It's simply because every case kind of builds on each other. Even the second case, which is kind of filler, feels like it's adequate in establishing Apollo and Athena's relationship, and also Blackwell as a attorney. So it feels necessary still. But in this game, I feel like you could have chopped out case 2 and 3 and just had case 1, 4, and 5, and you would have been good. So yeah, that's my problem with case 2 and 3 in this game, is that they just, Godot is the only really great thing about this game, I'll have to say about that. I will say maybe the reason people enjoy 1 and 3 the most is because Godot and Edgeworth, they are the most enjoyable prosecutors. And Godot is so great. He has so many good lines. In fact, you could argue that he is the best character in the entire Phoenix Wright series. And if you like Trials and Tribulations the most, I'm not, like, saying, oh yeah, Trials and Tribulations is definitely the worst game. No, I'm just saying on a personal level, I enjoyed it the least. But Godot is so awesome. He has so many funny lines. He has so many hilarious animations. I laugh almost every time his coffee cup slides to him. I think he's the greatest freaking character. The only thing that would have made him much better is if it wasn't completely obvious who he was and why he's mad at Phoenix. Because that's the other thing about this game, is that the only thing you have intrigue on in 2 and 3 is, why is Godot so mad at Phoenix? But since you know exactly who he is, it's like, there's no mystery. None at all. It's too obvious. It's not like something, oh, well, you can build on his words why he's so mad at Phoenix, and why he hates Phoenix so much. Nope. It's completely obvious from the get-go. And so he's not as intriguing as he should be. So they really should have done something interesting. And some people tell me, oh, well, they weren't really trying to hide it. I'm like, well, what's the point in that? Why even hide it at all then? It's just, it's like there's no point in even foreshadowing it with his lines, because we all know why he's just mad at Phoenix because he's alive and Mia's not. And it's like, ugh. Don't get me wrong, him being mad at Phoenix is extremely hilarious regardless, because he just does so many funny things and says so many funny lines. And regardless of that, he's still probably the best character in the entire series, regardless, just because he's amazing. And once again, I'm still kind of bitter that the last case focused on Dahlia way more than him. What a crime that was, right? Yeah. Really good stuff with Godot, but these case 2 and 3, I was not into either of these cases, because I was only into the cases when Godot was talking. But otherwise, I was just like, can we just get on with the main plot that you started in the first case? Because clearly, Dahlia is coming back in some way, and clearly, we're going to do something that we established in the second game. Can we just get on with it? And I think that's the biggest problem I had with this game, is like, get on with it already. And eventually we go to the flashback case with Mia and Godot, with that guy in the river. And that case is probably my favorite part of the game, to be honest. I thought that case was fairly interesting. It was nice to see Godot how he used to be towards Mia. I still think they should have established their relationship a little better. But it was still nice to see. And, how that guy kills himself at the end, it was... kind of a shocking twist, and it was nice to see Edgeworth fight against me. You're like, oh man, all these characters are kind of going together, and you think in the last case, oh, that's the reason why Edgeworth is in the last case, but really he doesn't have much of a reason, because unfortunately for Edgeworth, is everyone in the last case is a retard. like let's be honest here. Everyone in the last case of Phoenix Wright is so stupid. It's like, okay, how does no one know who Iris is? Like, question. It's like, she looks a lot like Dahlia. No one questions this. Nobody. I'm like, oh my god, everyone in this game is such an idiot. and even Edgeworth. I'm like, I could believe Phoenix because Phoenix is a dumbass. But Edgeworth, it's like, she seems familiar, but I'm not quite sure who she is. I'm like, you can't remember who the person that looks exactly like, of your first case that had a really, big ending to it. So you should have remembered it forever. It would be very believable for him to remember, the first person he adequately prosecuted against. And yet even he can't put the pieces together from my memory. I might be judging that wrong. It's been a while since I played the game, but I'm pretty sure Edgeworth doesn't even know who Iris is. But it should be like an immediate thing. It's like, oh, it's been a while, but he should know who the fuck Iris is. It's like, you look exactly like Dahlia. Are you Dahlia? Because like the case kind of tries to do that with that for a while. It's like, you think Iris is Dahlia, then it's like, no, I'm her sister. And it's like, okay. This case is quite long. I guess it's nowhere near as long as some of the cases in Spirit of Justice and Dual Destinies in hindsight. But the interesting thing about this case is how complex it is. It just kind of is so super complex. But just things lead to each other, and you get ridiculous things like freaking... what the hell is the stupid comic relief oh, Lenny? Is that his name? Lenny? Like him seeing lightning on a bridge and you like contradicting what he sees. That's all fun stuff. And man, I did this whole case without a guide, and I think that's why it felt ultra long. I really wish I didn't use a guide. I mean, I really wish I used the guide so I could have got through it because I feel like I was stuck on so many segments for so long. And this is actually the case that was the hardest in the series for me. Oh, sorry. But I don't know. I think this case is interesting because of how complicated it is. But the thing is, once again, I just don't care about Dahlia, and I don't think Dahlia is interesting, and I don't think Dahlia and Mia's rivalry was interesting at all. And I get that this case is supposed to kind of establish that, oh, Phoenix is kind of having to do things for all by himself because Mia won't do things that kind of point at her family and her loved ones and stuff, so Phoenix is kind of on his own in this case, and this shows he grows. But I didn't even really feel like that, to be honest. I didn't really think this case did an adequate job of showing Phoenix's growth as a character. It's just nothing was really adequate with Phoenix in terms of drama until the fourth game and the fifth. But yeah, I was really only into it once the case became about Godot, which is the last like 20 minutes of it, and you kind of realize that he's the real person who caused the murder, even though Iris is the one who desecrated the corpse. And that's somewhat interesting, and once again, it's a kind of a legit serious moment. The only problem is how little of the game it's been so long on Dahlia and not enough time on Iris that, and not enough time on Godot that it just like it completely undersells it. I was so mad, and Maya's such a fucking idiot during this case. I know she's trying to be nice, but it's like, look, if you do this, you also make it so Iris is gonna get accused of murder, you dumb ass, and it's just. She's so stupid. She is so dumb. I freaking hate Maya. Eventually, Spirit of Justice kind of redeems her when the writer realizes how to write characters finally, but yeah. Overall, it's definitely, I'm not here to call it a bad game. Once again, every Phoenix Wright game is good, but it's the one I just enjoyed the least. Then we get off to Apollo Justice. Now, Apollo Justice has a lot of problems, right? We all know this. Anyone who's played it knows it has a lot of problems. But, to be honest, it is the Phoenix Wright game that hooked me the most. It's the one that made me want to figure out what happened to Phoenix and who the hell is Druzy. Excuse me. So, despite its flaws, I can't say it's the one I read the fastest. So any flaws it has kind of are moot to me in a way compared to its hook. On rereads, it's probably the weakest Phoenix Wright besides Justice for All. If, without that initial hook. Once you know the hook, once you know all the plot threads, you probably reread it through it again. And as a storytelling thing, it's probably not as solid because of little issues it has. But it really did hook me way more than the other Phoenix Wright games. The biggest problem I have with, of course, Apollo Justice is one, Apollo's not well developed enough, and all of the focus is really on Phoenix, even without him being the main character, which is fine because this was supposed to be a trilogy, and we, eventually Apollo was supposed to get his development, and Apollo does get his development eventually. Just not in this game. And Apollo is actually probably the most developed character in the entire series, to be quite honest with you. So it's not like it eventually doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen in this game. But if you look at this game as an individual product, his development is not satisfactory in this game. I feel like he's a more in-depth character even at the beginning than Phoenix, but not a terrible amount in depth. He does feel very similar in a lot of ways. But they also absolutely screw up with him in a lot of ways, because at the beginning of the game, his master get accused, right? And Apollo, once again, doesn't sell this, much like Phoenix. He just kind of like, you're wrong. Therefore, justice must, prevail. And yet in Dual Destinies, the second he figures out that Athena might have had something to do with killing his friend, he's like, oh no, Athena might have done so. I can't take it. I can't do this. The whole game, he sells that drama really well. But in this game, it's like his master does something. He's like, well, whatever. I guess that was a bummer. It's like the writer is like, yeah, I didn't do very good with drama in my earlier games, did I? But let me get my thoughts together for a second. But yeah, this game, finally, we have an improvement over Maya. We get Trucy, who's actually a semi-useful character. You know, eventually she's not so useful because Apollo just gets her power, but better. So I don't think that was a good idea. I think they should have... I get why Apollo has that power, but I don't think they should have done that because it kind of undersells Trucy's usefulness as a character. And so we don't get real useful, completely the whole game useful attendance until Athena and Susato. But it was definitely a nice change of pace. You know, it's like she's a much more it feels like she sells things that Apollo, because Apollo is a more cynical character, and so Trucy is a much more positive and optimistic character, and she actually has interesting things about her, like, hiding her feelings and whatnot, and being positive regardless of learning that her dad might have been dead or whatever. You know, things that actually make you really sympathize with her and make her, of course, the waifu material of the series, if you want to go there. But, yeah, I definitely like Trucy way more than Maya. She's not necessarily super interesting, but she is really likable. And I think that was also a reason I found this game a little more tolerable than the other games. And plus, having a new main character helped. And this is the first game in the series where Phoenix is actually interesting. You know, and actually is a straight, let's just be honest, he's a straight up badass in this game. Almost every line he has, he's kind of like Godot in a lot of ways. Almost every line he has is fucking cool. And so you really want to listen to what he has to say. The only problem is, people didn't like this, right? We realized this in the preceding games. People were like, no, this isn't my Phoenix, even though they justify it by having a 7-year time skip. But this isn't my Phoenix. So they eventually revert him kind of half-ass back in Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice, where occasionally he's his badass self from Apollo Justice, and occasionally he's his dumbass self from the previous games. But it really does undersell how cool he is in this game, and it kind of buries how cool he was in this game, which is a big shame, because I think they made him too smart in this game, basically. They made him too perceptive. He's able to figure things out very easily in this game. And they couldn't have that if you were going to play him again. They had to revert him back to his dumbass self. And that's kind of a shame, but people were not ready to accept Apollo as the main character, which it unfortunately does make the series a lot more wishy-washily written than a great Ace Attorney will probably be. Unfortunately, because the writer wasn't completely sure how he wanted to handle everything. You know, the tone isn't as consistent, and the drama isn't as consistently handled, and, of course, now the characters aren't as consistently handled either. So, Apollo Justice just started a lot of problems with the series, especially with the big plot point. It builds up the entire system, game with the jury system they don't even use in the next two games. It's like, nope, can't even use that, and it's like, man, it's almost like... But they still keep plot points that start in this game. So it's like they want to retcon stuff they started in Apollo Justice while still keeping it. It just... That's probably why a lot of people are very bitter about Apollo Justice, is it is the game that made Phoenix Wright an insanely messy series in terms of writing. Gavin is the biggest problem with this game. We all know this, or we all should know this, because he is not well developed at all as a villain, and he's the main villain. He's in the first case and the last case, and I didn't like Dahlia, but at least they tried to develop her. They didn't really. They didn't really. But with Gavin, you think, okay, they're going to do a better job. But nope. In the first case, I'm an evil bitch. In the last case, I'm an evil bitch. And that's all there is to it. And they try to sell that he has this relationship with Clavier and Clavier's scared of him, but they don't show you any reason why Clavier would be scared of this guy. It just, they try to sell him as this big villain, but they don't do any of the work to, really get that point across. And he's just completely underdeveloped, completely underwhelming, and yeah, as a villain, he's just worthless. And it's like, man, if they had just done a way better job of building this guy up as a threat, then and giving him more to his character, more motivation behind his character. The writer just needs to do a better job with his villains. Like, how can this person write villains like Mysterious and then write villains like this crap? And that's why a lot of people actually would have preferred Mysterious to be the final villain of Apollo Justice, and I completely agree. He should have been the final villain. That second case of Spirit of Justice should have been the final case of this game, to be honest. That would have been way, way better. But unfortunately, we get what we get, and we get a crappy villain. And he, by himself, is kind of what ruins this game. Because, if your villain's underdeveloped, you're not going to have a very satisfying game. You're not going to feel like your main character accomplished very much. That's why the main character and the villain are kind of the two most important characters to get right. And if you don't get the villain right, the satisfaction factor is very low. But, Clavier is, I like him as an attorney. I think he's much better than Franziska. I didn't even mention Franziska in Justice for All because there's really not much to talk about. She's just a bitch with not a bitch, a tsundere, kudere, whatever you want to call it, with a whip gimmick. And that's it. There's really not much to her character at all. There's really not much to talk about. Part of the reason why Justice for All is kind of forgettable. Then we have Nayata and Blackwell, who have interesting motivations, I would say. But as characters, they're kind of dry. Blackwell becomes a little better in Spirit of Justice when he shows that he has a little more personality. But overall, as a character, he's not super great. He's not awful, but he's kind of boring too. He's kind of repetitive. Where Clavier actually feels like he has, crap to say and actually has, his own personality, his own opinions on things. And he actually has a lot of chemistry with Apollo, which is why, can we just talk about the shipping right now? Is it okay if I just talk about the shipping right now? Because it's impossible to avoid, right? Because the shipping's there. We all know the shipping's there. All right. I already mentioned, look, if Phoenix is going to end up with anyone, it might as well be Maya because that's what the fans want. I'm fine with it. I think it is more chemistry with Edgeworth. I think Maya's shit. But, with Maya as she is in Spirit of Justice, I'm more accepting of that now, and they might as well just make it happen because friggin' by the time Phoenix is married, he's going to be like 50 years old at that point, and the only reason people are going to accept that he's not the main character is that he's like 50 years old and has gray hair, but fans will probably still be like, no, just make him like Old Snake, just keep him the main character. But the more interesting ship to talk about, I really shouldn't talk about this until Dual Destinies, but I'm going to talk about it now, is Apollo, right? Is that people have this thing with Apollo that they can't. I know not everyone cares about shipping, but let's just be honest. I like shipping, okay? Not everyone has to be an asshole about shipping, right? I'm okay if someone supports, Blackwell and Athena. I'm okay if someone supports Apollo and Juniper. That's the one I disagree the most with. I'm like, what? But I'm okay with any kind of ship you support. Shipping's supposed to be fun. Just don't be an asshole and say, oh, your shipping is shit, or blah, 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 blah. Don't be an asshole about it. It's supposed to be fun until things are confirmed, until the fat lady sings, anything goes, really. Anything could really happen. That's really how romance writers write. I don't think any ship is going to get confirmed in Phoenix Wright except for Gumshoe and Maggie. But to be honest with Apollo has three options, right? He can either end up with Athena, Clavier, Juniper, four options, or Trucy. And a lot of people will say, what? You Trucy? That's incest. And I'm like, oh, you poor soul. You don't know Japan and their visual novels. That's like their favorite thing. I'm like, oh God, it's a visual novel. There's incest in almost every visual novel. I'll tell you that much. There is some form of incest in almost like 80% of visual novels, even the all ages ones. There's hints of incest. And I can't believe even Phoenix Wright has it. I should have guessed. I'm like, oh my God. Because let's be honest, if it isn't obvious to you, Trucy is in love with Apollo. If it isn't obvious to you, that has to be said. I know you're like, oh, gross. Nope, that is totally what, like, I don't know about how Apollo feels about anything. To me, I think Apollo likes Athena, but, whatever. And because, the Black Quill Athena shippers, they're really hardcore, and, that's not a bad ship because, there is good reason behind why that ship exists. But I want Apollo and Athena to end up together. I think Dual Destinies established they have the most chemistry. The only one Apollo has more chemistry with than Athena is Clavier. That's why I do not support Juniper at all, because I feel like that came out of nowhere. Like, all of a sudden, I'm like, Athena's the one who helped Juniper the most in that case, but for some reason, she's in love with Apollo. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, that came out of the writer's butt. I feel like the reason he did that with Juniper and Dual Destinies is because he wanted to kind of segue off of the shipping, so it's a little more muggy, because otherwise it would have been obvious that it's a love triangle between Blackwell, Athena, and Apollo, and he's like, well, I gotta segue off it so it's not so one-sided that Apollo might just be ending up with Athena, but we don't know. I don't know how it's going to end up. If they do decide Trucy, they're going to keep it completely implied. They'll never confirm it. I'll tell you that much. But I'll do not even for 1 second think that Trucy's not in love with Apollo. That one I can 100% assure you. And she is, and with how apathetic she is about like things and how weird she is, she's not even going to care if it's her brother. That's just how she is. That's just Japan for you. Remember, this is the same. I hate to be generalizing on Japan, but they really are weird about their incest, right? They're just obsessed with it. I don't know why, but they are. I guess they think it's risque and exciting because it's taboo and exciting, blah 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 blah. But honestly, I don't think they're going to do a gay relationship at all in Phoenix Wright. I don't think there's any chance of that. So Clavier and Apollo is more just a fun thing because they have a lot of chemistry, natural chemistry with each other, which is one of the most enjoyable things about Apollo Justice, is that Apollo and Clavier really do have very good chemistry with each other and are really fun with each other. And it's the part of the game I quite liked a lot. And that's probably why I liked Apollo so much compared to Phoenix, is because I actually felt like he had a lot of chemistry with Clavier compared to how much chemistry Phoenix had with other prosecutors. Not that Phoenix didn't, but he felt like he wasn't, eventually they do establish pretty good chemistry between Phoenix and Edgeworth, but I don't think it's as much as Apollo and Clavier, where pretty much every conversation they have is funny as hell. But Dual Destinies just did such a good job of building up how important Apollo is to Athena the whole game, because most of the game is about her missing Apollo, and most of the game is about Apollo being so ravaged by how much it bothers him that Athena might be the murderer of his best friend. And it's like, that kind of drama is just not, I know the Black Quill thing, and I know that's really, really sweet and all that, and so I'm not against those shippers at all. I'm not against any shipper, okay? You can ship Phoenix with freaking Maggie if you want. What's wrong with you? Just kidding. But you can ship Edgeworth with Gumshoe. That one's great, by the way. I don't care. But I just... That's one of the reasons I like Dual Destinies, because I actually do quite like romance. And Dual Destinies is the only game in the series with a lot of romantic undertones in it. So that one's basically shipper heaven, which is why I liked it too. That's not the only reason I liked it. It's just one of the reasons it kind of appealed to me, but it's not the reason I like it the most. Yes, completely got off topic there, but I just wanted to address it because I might as well, because shipping's such a big part of the fan base. And the main thing is, I know not everyone cares about it, but a lot of people do. And the main thing is, don't let the people who who give shippers a bad name, just don't pay attention to them. There's always these overzealous fans who friggin' go way too far and tell everyone their opinions are shit, blah, blah, blah. How dare you like Apollo Justice more than Trials and Tribulations, which is me. And you know, you're allowed to tell me that, but I did like Apollo Justice more than Trials and Tribulations, by the way. But yeah, where the fuck was I when I was talking about Apollo Justice? This is a problem with doing it this way without a script. I just segue all the time, but that's just the way this is. It's supposed to be fun, right, guys? With Apollo Justice, it also kind of doesn't flow perfectly together because it has two filler cases in between the first case and the last case, so it has Trials and Tribulations and problem of that. And of course, well, no, Spirit of Justice has a different problem altogether. So yeah, basically, throughout the filler cases, the main intrigue is when you get to talk to Phoenix and you get to learn a little bit more about his past, and that's kind of how the game builds up. And that's all very interesting, but the case 2 and 3 are rather forgettable. And oh my god, we do have to talk about case 3, which is in my opinion, the worst case in the entire Phoenix Wright series for one reason. I don't think the iPhone version or the 3DS version or whatever, I forget which versions Apollo Justice is sold on, have this problem, but one of the worst problems is that video you have to watch every single time in Apollo Justice. It is insufferable to listen to that video and watch that video every single time. Oh my god, I was baffled how many times I played that video. I was just like, is this really happening? Are they really playing this video again? And it's so tedious to listen to that song, watch that video every time just to look for more clues. Oh my god, it ruined the case. You know, this is another case where people find it very illogical because there's no way that little kid could have fired that gun or whatever, because it's just, you know, they already established this is impossible, and yet they still try the person anyway. But, you know, whatever, it's Phoenix Wright. It's illogical as fuck most of the time. But god damn, that video just murdered this case for me. I was like, I'm so sick of this case by this point. Thankfully, the last case is fairly good the whole way. You know, it's interesting to see the flashback part and it's interesting to see Clavier pull out the piece of evidence that screws Phoenix over. And one thing about Apollo Justice, I need to talk about this, is that I think it has... So the main thing I have to say about Apollo Justice, though, is one thing it did really well was having the most interesting side character, I think, in the entire series, besides maybe Dirk. And to this point, it had the most interesting side character, which is Valent, who actually is that. He's an interesting character, a interesting, sympathetic, but also deeply flawed character, who's, you know, kind of full of himself, you know, does things that are bad, but isn't completely 100%, you know, an awful, awful person. And it's like, man, he should have been the main villain, to be honest. Because you know, he even turns himself in at the end. It's kind of weird, you know? It's like he even realizes his crimes are bad. And it's like, man, why can't they treat the villains with this level of, you know, respect and make them actually kind of cool and sympathetic to a degree and not make them just, you know, ridiculous retards. You know, he's the only character that's actually really, really interesting in this. He's one of the only kind of villainous figures that's actually really, really interesting. You see why he would do some of the things he does because he has such a ridiculous master who's just kind of absurd, you know? Yeah, and so he kind of goes to absurd lengths himself to get what he wants, you know, and but he also realizes he was in the wrong eventually, and then he turns himself in, and it's like, man, why isn't the rest of these villains written with this level of care? It sucks. The only reason I didn't bring him up was because he's not really the main villain. The main villain is of this case is Gavin, and Gavin sucks ass. And it's like, come on, how can you write Valent and then write Gavin? You know, but it was interesting. It's still, the biggest problem everyone has with the stupid jury system is it decides things way too easily for you, and it does feel like a big cop-out, and kind of shows you problems with a jury anyway. It's like, well, man, they can just do that because of, it's just so easy, and they don't. Whatever. I'm not even gonna get into that. But yeah, it is kind of a cop-out ending compared to the other games. It's made too easy because it establishes you don't have the proper evidence to really accuse Gavin, so it lets the jury system do it for you, and it's just not as satisfying as the other games because of it. And since, the best thing about this end case at the end is that, they have this whole game where Clavier doesn't necessarily hate Apollo, but he doesn't necessarily super respect Apollo, and he's just kind of poking fun at him the whole game because he just finds him amusing. But the nicest thing about this case to me is when he calls him Apollo Justice. That's good storytelling right there, because it actually shows that he finally does respect him to some degree. And it's a little disappointing that Clavier, you don't see more of him in the sequels, but hey, that's the nature of things. But overall, Apollo Justice was a fun read because of the big initial hook. I really liked Valent, and if they had just made Gavin, if they just took out that cop-out ending, and if they had just made Gavin a better character, I think this game would have been fine, to be honest. But, it also had some filler cases that really weren't that interesting. And, yeah. But I do say it still has the best first case of the series in a game, just because of all the things that kind of spur you on to learn more about the rest of the game, where I don't think any of the other games do nearly as good of a job as hooking you. And then we get to my favorite game in the series, which is Dual Destinies, which I think does character development honestly better than any of the other games, just because it's structured very well. It really does feel like all the characters are kind of developing each case, and it actually begins in a very interesting way, because the first case that you take place in is not the first case in the timeline, yet it's still relevant to the whole game's story. And, it's a fun beginning, but and it's not a horrible way to introduce Athena, because it also does the thing of letting you play as Phoenix for a bit, and then you don't get to play as Phoenix to the end. I don't know if that pissed players off, but the worst thing about Dual Destinies, unfortunately, is Phoenix, because they just kind of revert him completely back to his old self, and he's not nearly as cool anymore. And and it's not like he's got any realmed. It's like, I don't even know why people want Phoenix. It's like people treat Phoenix like he's Mario, and it's like, oh, we're just happy to see him. And it's like, yeah, but in a game that's based on storytelling, you really need to have your main character develop and grow. And Phoenix is really done developing and growing, and it's just, you don't want to just masturbate over your character. You really will undersell him and make him look worse. This is how the problem with wrestling, right? Is that I don't really watch wrestling. My girlfriend watches it, and she makes me watch it with her. But the main thing I see is they keep on trying to, keep a character around and around and around. Same with Dragon Ball Super, and eventually they just go in circles, right? And then they kind of become less characters because of that. And that's the problem. That's the biggest problem with Dual Destinies, in my opinion. Besides, there's one other issue with Dual Destinies that's a big problem, of course. And that's that the side characters aren't so great in this game. The side witnesses, they're a little irritating at times. They're not necessarily super interesting characters. We don't really have a side character that's nearly as interesting as like Valent or anything like that. And of course, Blackwell is nowhere near as good of a prosecutor or as interesting as Godot or Edgeworth. And Bobby Fulbright, while entertaining, I think he's fine as a replacement for Gumshoe for the most part of the game, but they do something really stupid with him. See, they start Bobby Fulbright as this goofy character, and he's goofy the entire game until the end that you realize, oh, he's not what he seems, and he's actually, the main villain. So they actually make him cool, and that makes also a seemingly legit cool moment, because he's like, oh, you think he's this goofball, but he's actually not. It's all an act. And then he becomes kind of this badass at the end who, can handle people and can actually defend himself properly. And it's kind of cool that he started all this tragedy too. But then the game turns into Phoenix right at the end and just turns him into a goofball villain who has an over-the-top, retarded overreaction to losing. And it's so dumb and so lame. And it's like, come on, Phoenix Wright. You can be better than that. Look, I'm okay with Phoenix Wright having its goofy villains in the cases building up to the final case. But in the final case, you need to take your main villain a little more seriously. Because that's what really, like, it was fine in the first game because the first game really wasn't a drama game at all. But in this game, it's much more serious than the first game. So, why didn't they so once again they've screwed up on the main villain, and that's the biggest shame about Dual Destinies to me, is that, man, if only they didn't do that, this game would have been so much better. But honestly, I love how this game's structured. I love that you're given some intrigue, then it's rewinds in time, and Athena gives you this narration that says she, is really, you see Apollo leave, and I was also very hooked, not as hooked as Apollo Justice, but I was very hooked to see why Apollo would come to that conclusion. I think it's very interesting, the whole game. And you see that, Apollo and Athena's relationship kind of grow with the first two cases. And that's the thing. I think they did a much, much better job of establishing a relationship that actually feels like the two get closer and develop and have, even if you don't see it in a shipper way, at least as a friendship, I think they do a very good job of establishing a bond between these two characters. And this is something they didn't do with Mia and Godot. That's why I didn't really get into Mia and Godot's little thing. I didn't really feel that, bad about it. But when they try to sell Apollo being all upset over Athena, it worked because they did such a good job of showing you their initial relationship. And that's why, even though the second case is kind of filler, it is kind of the introduction of how they are forming a friendship with each other. And it works really well because of that. So I think in terms of selling its drama, this game really does it really, really well. Especially since every case kind of leads to another. Like the third case shows Athena, it shows you intrigue about Black Quill. It shows you Athena developing on her own, which, you see Athena kind of reach a down point in the third case. And then in the fourth and fifth case, when you see her reach where Phoenix Wright, I never thought I'd see this for Phoenix Wright, becomes very emotional and very over the top with its drama, which I kind of love, to be honest. I know this would really put off a lot of Phoenix Wright fans, unfortunately, because it's not how the rest of the series was done. So I don't blame anyone who didn't like this part, and it does the whole bulging eyeball things, like, oh my god, I can't believe I did this! But I love this. It worked because they were trying to build Athena's confidence up, and then they show her reach her down point, and they make her get lower and lower, and then it reaches an all-time low when Apollo accuses her at first, and that is the best moment in the entire series, if you ask me, when Apollo accuses Athena. That moment is the most dramatic, the only thing as good as it is when Apollo figures out that Dirk's dead. Those two are the most emotional moments in the series, which is why I'd honestly also argue that Apollo might be the best character, because he also has the best moments in the series, if you ask me, from a dramatic storytelling standpoint. And why I argue Apollo's a better character than Phoenix, because Phoenix doesn't have any moments like this, honestly, because Phoenix just kind of is too good with things. Like, he takes drama too well, and it kind of really, he just undersells it, and it just, it's just not as interesting because of that. And I think I think the reason they write Phoenix that way is because they don't want to take a risk with Phoenix. They did in Apollo Justice, but then from that point forth, they never wanted to take a risk again. And so they kind of just want him to be that character that the audience can always rely on to root on, sorta. But then in Spirit of Justice, they have you go against Phoenix. Oh, I'm tangenting. This is not even going anywhere. I'm confused. I'm like, I say this, but I don't even know what they want to do with Phoenix. But I still don't think the main point is, I don't think they do anything nearly as dramatically satisfying as what they do with Apollo, because they just aren't willing to. I don't know. They're just not willing to really. There's no real place for Phoenix to develop at this point, because they've kind of already reached him at that place where they want him to be. Where with Apollo, they weren't really where he wanted him to be until the end of Spirit of Justice. And once again, of course, this creates the problem that, in Apollo Justice, like I said before, they didn't really sell. Apollo didn't sell Gavin, his master, getting, buried. But it didn't really matter because it's not like they ever showed a close bond between Gavin and Apollo like they did with Apollo and Athena. And I think Athena is also a much better character than Trucy because she's definitely a character that has her own personality. She has her own mix of flaws and stuff, and she has her own drama she's dealing with. So I think at this point in the series, she's the best written female they've had. Spirit of Justice, they didn't do such a good job with her. She's just kind of there for some reason, but whatever. You can't. That's the other problem with Spirit of Justice at that point is all the characters are kind of fighting for screen time because, there's too many main characters at that point. But yeah, basically the main thing I have a problem with this game is the actual ending. If they just would have sold the villain better, I know they probably thought, oh, well, we made our serious dramatic point, Apollo accusing Athena, which honestly is such a good moment that it just, the rest of the remaining of the case is nowhere near as compelling. So they kind of climaxed way too early in the final case in Dual Destinies because of that. And it kind of undersells the rest of the case. And especially they undersell it even more because of the way the villain is. So maybe they should have kept that moment till the end. Maybe, I don't know. It was nice to see them all come together and work together to take him down. That's the main satisfying thing about it. But once again, since the villain's not very good, it wasn't nearly as satisfying as it should have been. But it wasn't horrible or anything. So once again, every Phoenix Wright game has its flaws. So I'm not here to say Dual Destinies is like the best game in the series by far. It's just the one I resonated with the most. It was the one I was the most emotionally invested in. It's the one I kept on reading. I wanted to keep on reading, and yeah, I really, really liked it. Just wish it had a better villain. And now we get to Spirit of Justice, which, as I told you before, it is the worst structured game bar none. The writer is an idiot for structuring it the way he did. Because let me tell you, what does the game do? The game starts you off in that country. I can't even remember the name of the country at the moment. Whatever. Friggin' Asia. Asia. That's all this is called, the country, Asia. Yeah, because all, Phoenix Wright is from, California, not Japan. So they go to Asia. God, I have ruined this whole review, this whole thing. But they go there, and in the first case, and it's fine. It's like, okay, we're getting invested in this new country, right? And we're kind of introducing the problems with this country, and we have this really big, wacky guy as our first kind of guy we're defending against or prosecuting against. And it's really entertaining first case, right? The first case is actually really good. It's really funny because basically because of the freaking rocker guy who's hilarious. And he might honestly be the best first case guy in the entire series. I will give it that, because he's just that. His name is so ridiculous. Peace, love, and understanding. What the hell? I love the names in this game. That's Ball. What? Jesus, it's so funny. But, so they start you and get you invested in that country. Then what do? They switch. Not only do they go back to California, but they also switch the perspective to Apollo. And it's like, oh, I was supposed to get all invested in that country, and yet now here I am, back in California. Okay. Well, I'm like, okay, I guess they just want you to have familiar roots. And honestly, they also do something else stupid. They give you the best villain in the game in the second case. It's like, what? Are you joking me? So the most... it's so weird. It's like the second case is very dramatic, actually, and it works really well because Trucy has been shown to be a very positive character the entire series. She has her down moments. This is the first case where you actually see her break down and cry, and it works from a really good emotional standpoint. And of course, this case Probably makes a lot of shippers happy. In fact, you could tell the writer is like, he's so aware that people ship Apollo and Athena, and also Athena with Black Will, that he had to include both. And that's probably why that Athena case is included at all. But he's not gonna tell you which one he's gonna pick. And it's like, no, I'll never tell you that. I'm gonna tease forever, because that's what sells people. Teasing, never giving people a definite answer. No, teasing forever. It's true. People do love getting teased more than they like getting the actual result. But the case worked really well and also it's completely established that Trucy is completely in love with Apollo. A lot of people say, no, it's a brother-sister relationship. Nope, you are blind as a bat if you think that. I don't know how Apollo thinks. I'm pretty sure in this case in this game, they made it pretty apparent that Apollo likes Athena. If you show a picture of Apollo's dad to Athena, she comments that how handsome his dad is, and you could tell he wants her to say the same about him, stuff like that. My girlfriend is a humongous Apollo Athena shipper, so she made sure I knew every single moment in the game. But then, of course, we also have moments like Dirk commenting on their relationship. Is like, Apollo, this girl is marriage material. And it's like, oh my God, writer, what is the wrong with you? I didn't even comment on that in Apollo Justice. I didn't even bring that up. So in Apollo Justice, in that third case, we learned that Lamore is Apollo and Athena's mom, or not Apollo and Trucy's mom, right? And still to this game, she never tells them, and Phoenix never tells them that they might happen. Why? What in the world? How could they not know by this point? This is the dumbest plot twist. And they bring it up at the end of this game, even though this game could have been the end of the series for all intents and purposes, but they still bring it up because they're like, well, we've got one game left to go, I guess. I don't know if they'll just keep making Phoenix rights forever, but since that is the plot twist they're bringing up, I'm going to guess the next game will be the last one. But it's a moment of, why is this a plot twist? Like, why is this a plot twist? Like, why have they don't know yet? What is this going to change other than, we're going to bring up drama that, oh no, I'm in love with my brother. And if Phoenix Wright brings up that drama, that would be ridiculous. I can't believe that might happen. I'm like, what is going to change by Apollo knowing that Lamore is his mother? Like, you just feel so bad for him in Dual Destinies too, because you learn about his past, how I'm Apollo Justice and I'm fine is more of a thing that he learns because he needs to comfort himself because he doesn't have parents, because, Dirk abandoned him too. Well, didn't abandon him, but he didn't want to put Apollo in danger because of the things he was doing. Makes sense. It's Dirk has a more believable reason, I would say. But Lamore, it's like, it just makes you go, the whole series, I'm just going, man, Lamore, what a bad mom. And it's like, why doesn't she do it? Oh, well, because I gotta follow my dream. I gotta go sing. I'm like, so you're not going to tell them they have a mom that loves them? That's not something they wouldn't want to know? God, that's such an irritating plot point. I can't believe the series still does that. It just, at this point, it just feels like an excuse to artificially extend the series so that they can have a reason to have another game. But after that, they're probably not going to have a reason to another game. That's why the next game might be the last one, and honestly, it should be the last one because we're really getting overextended on the series at this point. So yeah, we get this whole second case, and this case is great. It's great, but it has nothing to do with that new country we just established. And it's like, by the end of this case, I'm like, oh yeah, there was that new country. I guess because Nayata's in this case, it kind of keeps that sense in this game, but it really didn't for me. It was like, oh yeah, there's stuff going on in that country, I suppose, but I don't really care because I'm all invested in what's happening in the second case instead. That has to do with Trucy and Apollo, and this villain's really great, and he has nothing to do with the rest of the game. He's so full of personality, he's so fun, and, he also, when you beat him, he kind of overacts, but he also doesn't just completely turn into a, piece of goop at the end. He actually continues to be like, you're full of shit if you think, this is going to change my mind on anything. And that was nice to see. That was nice to see that the villain kind of still stood his ground at the end. And I'm like, man, that's nice. I'm like, we could use more of that. And then Then we get into the third case, which is once again Phoenix's perspective. And you know what the whole game does? You know what the whole game does with Phoenix? And so the third case happens, and the most enjoyable thing about this case is seeing Rafa and her get closer to Phoenix. Because Rafa probably has more chemistry with Phoenix than anyone in the series up to this point. It's kind of weird that Phoenix has the most chemistry with this 15-year-old girl, but it kind of makes sense at the same time because, I actually really like Phoenix and Trucy's kind of relationship too. I think it's fun. But you kind of see, they should have done this a little more, honestly, but since Phoenix is technically Trucy's father figure, her dad at this point, they should have brought a little more of his daddy fatherly protection, like fatherly instincts a little more with Rafa, I think. I feel like he kind of regarded her like that, but it was downplayed, and I don't think they should have done that completely. I think they should have shown, Phoenix is a daddy. That's the only thing I would have adjusted about this, but otherwise their relationship is really fun. Rafa is a very fun character. I noticed that she's probably everyone's favorite character that got introduced in this game besides Mysterious and Dirk. But yeah, she's a really fun character. She's a big tsundere, obviously, and she's a tsundere done properly, where, she has her positive traits, she has her willingness to learn about things, she shows her ignorance, her naivety, and it's all very cute. But the biggest problem with this, what is the biggest problem with this? Phoenix is the one spending all this time with Rafa, right? Yet, the final case, Rafa has to help Apollo out, who she spent 0 time with. And it's like, why didn't they make Apollo appear in this third case? I know because of the way the story's written, it's like, well, they wanted it so Apollo goes back to this country. But it's like, it doesn't really work in the 5th case because it feels like Rafa's helping Apollo more than she's helping Phoenix. And the way it's written, it feels like she really wants to support Apollo. But I'm like, Phoenix is the one she established a relationship and built a relationship with in this game. Why did they do this? It's like they should have gone back. They should have had Apollo go back earlier to Kurayan. That's the name. It's not Asia. It's Kurayan. I finally remembered. They should have done that. They should have found a way to do that. To find a way to wrote that in. But instead, they make her develop this cute relationship with Phoenix, and then they don't do anything with it for the rest of the game. It makes her grow as a person, and that's used for the rest of the game, but it doesn't make her, they don't really utilize it that well with Apollo, because they just kind of say, oh yeah, I just want to be useful to Apollo. I'm like, why? You don't know Apollo at all. It's kind of weird. I know Phoenix is helping there, but she's always referring to Apollo in the last case, and it just doesn't work. They definitely, this third case, unfortunately, is written in because people want to play as Phoenix, right? But this should never have been a Phoenix Wright game. Let's be honest. This should have never been a Phoenix Wright game. This should have been a complete Apollo Justice game the whole way through. They just weren't confident enough in Apollo that would succeed, so they had to write Phoenix in, and, it's not bad that Phoenix is not bad in this chapter. I'm not saying that, but it hurts the structure and it hurts the storytelling nature of the game, because it just feels like Phoenix is written in here because he has to deliver, he has to pander to the fans, not because he really belongs here. And then the other good thing about the third case is they do a legit good emotional moment and they really show how, someone become a victim of this country's system, and why the villain was the person it was, and it's really emotion. It's a really emotional scene, and it actually works really well. And then at the end of the case, they start up this revolution or whatever, and it gets really exciting. And you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna get awesome, right? And then they immediately go to the most filler case in the game. I'm like, way to kill what a buzzkill, right? The 4th case is the biggest buzzkill because it has nothing to do with anything. And it's like, this is horrible how badly structured this game is. It only gets worse. It only gets worse. So the 4th case is just, let's be honest, is there to pander to Athena fans and to pander to Athena and Blackwell shippers. That is the whole point of that fourth case. Don't get me wrong, it's kind of amusing. The guy you're defending against is kind of amusing. In fact, I would say the side witnesses and the witnesses are much better in Spirit of Justice than in Dual Destinies. And of course, the villains are better too. But, God, the structure just ruins this game. And it's just like, man, it's so hard to care in this case. It's like, you got me all invested. You put me in Karayan. Then you take me away from Karayan. Then you put me back in Karayan, get me invested. Then you take me away from Karayan again. It's like, do you want me to be invested in this country situation or not, game? And then, so you get this, there's nothing to even talk about this filler case. It's a typical Phoenix Wright murder mystery. It's okay. It's fine. There's nothing really that wrong with it. It's just not in the right place in the game. It should have been the second case of the game or something like that. So, but whatever. And then we get to Turnabout Revolution, which is probably the second best case in the entire series, I'd say. Maybe I'd say that. And, because Dirk comes in, and Dirk is basically, he's so good all by himself that he makes this extremely fun. And Apollo and Dirk's relationship is extremely awesome, extremely fun. I loved everything about Dirk. He's a really likable character, and, it creates these really genuine and sincere emotional moments where Dirk wants to spend quality time with Apollo, and Apollo's like, eh. I mean, you can believe it because, Dirk didn't he feels like Dirk maybe kind of abandoned him a little. So it's believable that Apollo is a little against being sincere with Dirk, even though he is a big tsundere about him. And it's very good emotional stuff without feeling too forced, because Dirk is such a amusing character. And it's just every single little gesture he does towards Apollo, everything he does around Apollo, you could just tell he wants to be close to him. And it's all very cute stuff, really. And of course, he's also the person who really just decides, by the way, nudge, nudge, Trucy's in love with you. You should, totally marry her. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the writer actually wrote that. I'm like, oh my God, writer, we're actually going here. And of course, Apollo no-sells it. I know I'm using wrestling terms because my girlfriend makes me watch too much wrestling, but then the writer does something really that he shouldn't have done. He should have not ever done this until, basically the end of the series. And since we know he's going to make another game, we know Spirit of Justice is not the end of the series. He does Apollo versus Phoenix in this game. Well, sort of. He kind of did this in Dual Destinies, and he did it better in Dual Destinies, by the way. This moment is nowhere near as good as that. It's not even in the remote atmosphere of that. I couldn't believe this. I'm like, over the lamest thing. It's over Paul Ashton, one of the lamest villains in the series, and it's Apollo versus Phoenix. Apollo and Athena versus Phoenix. It's like, this should be saved for a really, really big dramatic moment in the series. It should not just be given to you randomly, right? They should have saved this, and yet they give it to you over the lamest thing. They're fighting over this object. And eventually we learn that Phoenix is fighting over Maya. That would have been nice to know, too. But, yeah. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, why would they do this moment now? They should save this for one of the biggest dramatic moments in the series, not for just something where it's like, well, Phoenix is acting weird. I wonder why he wants to be against me. Why is he fighting against me? He's just all of a sudden finally using that character development he got in Justice for all of a sudden. They're actually trying to make that relevant, and then you realize it's not so relevant. He's just doing it because it's against his own will. And so it's like, I just felt like this was the main thing about Turnabout Revolution I didn't like. The rest of the case was fine for the most part, but this part, I'm just like, man, they shouldn't have done this early in the series. If there was going to be another game, they should have made this basically the last thing you did. But now they've done it so early, and now they can't do it again. And of course, it's kind of lame because it's because it's over essentially nothing that me as an audience can perceive as that important. If I knew about Maya beforehand, and if I cared about Maya, maybe I could have seen it a little more. But it should have been built up way better. It shouldn't have just been given to you, and that's my main problem with it. The rest of the case, we get, Edgeworth inserted again because, pandering and fan service. Thankfully, he's not really in the case. He shouldn't have been in the game at all, to be honest. But, of course, they're afraid because Edgeworth, I believe, is the most popular character in the series. They can't just leave him out of the game because why not? Why is he even on the front cover? He's not in the game, at all. But whatever. And this case is, extremely highly emotional because, all the Dirk stuff, and they did a good job of building. It's much like Dual Destinies, where they didn't do quite as good of a job building Dirk and Apollo's relationship like they did Athena and Apollo's. But it works because, the consequences are a bit higher because Dirk's actually dead, and it makes his actions feel even more sweet. And if you go back and reread those sections, it's actually very, very extremely sad to read through. And the moment where Apollo learns that Dirk is actually dead and has to identify that he's dead is extremely the high point of the game for sure. Besides the Mr. Use stuff, of course, both Trucy and Apollo getting to their low point is the high point of the game, to be honest. And it's all really great because of that. Unfortunately, and the case itself is very interesting. I would say it's probably even the most interesting of cases because of, it involves so much, and how the powers are used in this game is really interesting. Although I will admit, like I said before, I used a guide because I was so into it. I just wanted to see how this case ended and what kind of choices Apollo would make. By the end of this game, would he stay in Karian? Because it's clear they built up. They actually did foreshadow that Dirk wanted Apollo to come back to Karian and help him out with stuff, which is even more tragic when you think about it. But they actually built up to that ending very well, and with this game. And I wanted to see that stuff, and I did. And I think Spirit of Justice has the best ending in the series in terms of an emotional payoff, because it really, Apollo has to make this choice of whether he wants to stay in Karian or go back with Phoenix. And as an audience, you're like, I like him with Phoenix and stuff. Still, I don't, but I realize this is a big, good decision for him to make, and that it's important to Apollo. And it is. It gives him a choice that has weight to it. I mean, eventually he says, I'm going to come back, of course, because, we have to tease the shippers, as always. It's like, no, it's like, well, have the Blackwell Apollo shippers, Blackwell Athena shippers, well, has the ship sunk? And it's like, no, it hasn't. It's like, damn. I imagine a lot of people were like that. And of course, people like my girlfriend were very happy that the ship hadn't sunk. And of course, Trucy at the end shows even more that she's super in love with Apollo. It's like, oh yeah, I want to go visit him in Karian. And I'm like, oh my god. It's the thing about it is, if it just wasn't his sister, I probably would support, Trucy and Apollo, because it's like, it is really cute, but it's his sister. So why don't they just freaking reveal that already? But honestly, the only problem with this ending case, besides the stupid beginning part, but the case is so long that the second part it pretty much is its own little case all by itself. The second part is ridiculously long trial, that it kind of is okay in a way. It's not okay, but this is why I think the first case is better. The final case of the first game is better because it's a little more well balanced, where none of it feels poorly written or poorly built up to. But the villain is not great. She's definitely no Mr. Hughes, and she's just lame in general. The villain of the fourth case was lame too, but the villain of this case is just another Von Karma. Tries to be Von Karma, but isn't as entertaining as Von Karma. She's all right, I guess, but she's just a typical villain. Nothing to her, nothing that interesting about her, and she's all she's all right. I feel like Rafa turned on her mother a little too easily, but whatever. The interesting thing was learning about Dirk's wife and her defending her sister as well. That was kind of interesting. But otherwise, it was, the main thing was Apollo freeing Nayata, freeing Rafa, and getting Dirk innocent, even though, the main thing about this case was all the development Apollo was receiving. That is the main thing about this case, and kind of establishes him as the best developed character in the series. And I despite its heavy flaws, I really enjoyed it. I should like Spirit of Justice the most, but as I've established, these structure problems just killed a lot of this game, and it made it harder to read than Dual Destinies for me, because it just felt like when I got to that fourth case, I was just like, I don't care. I'm so into this Karayan thing by the third case, and I just don't care anymore. I'm just like, and then in the beginning of the fifth case, you're still kind of not in Karayan, and it's like, oh my god, why the hell is a game like this? And yeah, this game should have been so much better. But every emotional moment that happened in this game was sold really, really well. I will say that. Every dramatic, emotional moment, every single one was done really, really well. Even the ones in the filler cases, they were all done just extremely well. And it really shows how far the authors come in writing drama compared to the first game. If you go back to play the first game, it's almost unplayable in terms of drama. You think it's written by a completely different person. Maybe it is. I don't even know. Sometimes it feels like it. The other thing is, it's good to see Maya actually be, a person with opinions and can actually say stuff more than dumb shit, and can actually be a character instead of just, a one-dimensional comic relief girl. But the other this is nitpicking, but one of the big problems is Maya has the tendency in the series to always go to jail, and even in this game, she goes to jail and she gets kidnapped, and it kind of still makes Maya a little bit of a joke, but I'll give her credit. It bothered me when I played the game. It doesn't bother me so much now. It bothered me how much of a joke they try to make Maya, but at the set, because it's like, oh, let's do this again and again. Let's see how many times it's effective for Maya. It's like even when I learned that Maya get kidnapped, I'm like, who cares? She's been kidnapped before. She's been in jail before. She's been in a bad situation before. It's no longer effective with Maya. It's impossible to take seriously. And that's a problem with it. It's like, if he had just written Maya with his writing skills that he has now, I guarantee you Maya would have been a better character, and she wouldn't have bothered me so much. But, it's just not present. And that's why, with Great Ace Attorney, I think he's rewriting the story anew, and he's really trying to make it more consistent and quality, and, have had better consistent drama for the whole series, rather than, be kind of comic booky with the way it was written originally. Overall, if I were to rate the games in terms of how much I like them, I would probably say I liked Dual Destinies first, Spirit of Justice second, the first game third, Apollo Justice fourth, Justice for All fifth, and Trials and Tribulations sixth. I'd probably put Great Ace Attorney right below Dual Destinies if I were to be... I'm not sure. I haven't completed the game, so I'm not sure where I would rate it, but in terms of writing, I think the writing is much better. I don't think there's a character in this series that's as well written as Sherlock, for example. I think Sherlock is definitely the most amusing character he's ever written. And so that's... and I think the main character is fine, is good. I think Susato is a better... helper assistant than any of the other girls have been. And I'm not so sure on the prosecutor Von Zeeks yet, but I think the characters are more consistently amusing in Great Ace Attorney. I'll say that. But I'm not completely sure on how I'd rate it, because I think that series is written much more to be a trilogy, like where the story really does flow from one game to the other. So it's one of those games. It's not like written like how the current Phoenix Wright, where they're really kind of independent of one another. You should still play them in order, but they're a little more independent. A little more, not so much. Mainly the first. I'm not. You know what? Scratch that. I wouldn't even say they're that independent. They're just full of filler is the main thing. And that's the main thing. The main thing I want to see with Great Ace Attorney, and I think it's doing a slightly better job, but not completely, is less filler and better villains. That's the main thing I want to see with the rest of the Great Ace Attorney series. And hopefully I know 2 is out. So, but I might just wait till 3 is out because I know it's going to be more of a trilogy. But we'll see. With the seventh Phoenix Wright game, I think they really need to give Athena the spotlight for more of the game, because Apollo's really developed as much as he can develop, and Phoenix is really developed as much as he can develop. Give them both like one case, but give 3 cases to Athena is what I would say, if you must. But once again, all the characters fighting for screen time is also creating a little bit more of a mess. This is another reason why people might prefer the first 3 games, because it's just Phoenix those 3 games. And, it's a little more easy to focus on who to be invested on. And, yeah. So I know this was definitely the most rambly of the things I've ever done, and I'm very sorry about that. But I was talking about 6 games right out of my ass for the most part. I just wanted to give you my impressions and opinions on them, and hopefully I like Great Ace Attorney even more than how much I like them. But I have a funny feeling that Dual Destinies will remain my favorite in the series, just because I love how that game's structured. And yeah. And hi pie. Anyway, thanks for listening, and next time we'll try to make it a little less rambly.